Oh no. There we go.
Well, we had 15 signed up, and a third of them are joined right now. So,
all right, well, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Awesome. Everybody, welcome. Thanks so much for joining tonight. I really appreciate you jumping on in the evening after a long day of work. If you wouldn't mind, since we have a small group, if you introducing yourself, kind of where you're at in your real estate kind of journey, or what you're looking to accomplish. If you have a property or just looking to buy your first one, I think that could help a lot, just kind of guide the conversation and figure out what we can talk about and what we can dive a little bit deeper in on. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and just sharing a bit, that would be awesome. And then I can introduce Scott and I and our team.
Yeah, I can go first. It says Joseph on the screen there, but I go by Jake. So my name is Jake Olson. I'm a senior at the University of Minnesota, part-time, so I'll be finishing up with school here soon. But my goal, real estate-wise, is to hopefully purchase a house hacking property within the next year here. So by December of 2021. So I've kind of been like, I've basically taught myself as much as I can about real estate over this entire past summer, listen to Bigger Pockets, all that stuff, doing a lot of research. And I feel like I have a very decent knowledge now of real estate in general. But yeah, looking to hopefully get a house hacking property by end of next year.
Awesome.
I can go next. This is David. I'm out walking the dogs. So I actually just bought my first duplex. I closed at the end of August with Scott and Drew. I graduated 2 years ago from college working as an architect. I have one more exam to pass before I'm a licensed architect, and hopefully that happens on Monday. And yeah, I just purchased my first duplex, and I'm hoping to do the house hack, once every year until the goal right now that I'm looking at is 5, and then go from there. So.
Great. Congrats on the place.
I'm Michael. I have a duplex that I worked with Scott and Drew to get. And I'd like to expand the portfolio and probably get a second duplex in 2021.
Thanks, Michael.
Yes.
And Drew, we're just introducing ourselves and kind of where you're at in your real estate journey, what you're looking to do, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit.
Sure. Just at the very beginning, kind of looking at prospective places that I'd be interested in purchasing and flipping. So no experience at this point, but looking to try and get some experience.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll introduce myself. I'm Scott, and I started investing in real estate in 2013. We bought a duplex, lived in one side, rented out the other. It covered most of our mortgage. And we said, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's do one a year for the foreseeable future. And then it starts to snowball. And so now I've got in total 17 properties that I have shared partnerships with people, about 43 doors. And we started side by side because it's owning passive real estate and generating income from that has helped us do things with our lives that we couldn't do with a 9-to-5 job, like start side by side Realty. And so we hope to help other people grow small portfolios so that they can decide on what you want to do every day. So that's who I am.
And I am not listening. Garrett's trying to get in. So maybe you can help him with that, Scott.
I'm on it.
Thank you. Well, and I'm Alyssa. So I work with Scott and Drew at Side by Side, and Garrett, who's our other team member. And yeah, I house hack a fourplex. I have for the last 5 years. It has been the best and worst investment that I have made. And both my husband and I went off our W-2 jobs at the same time. So our original goal was just to house hack a duplex. and kind of end at that and travel more. But we really liked it. I loved working in real estate. I loved working with people to help them do a similar thing and pursue similar goals. And so I got into real estate full time, met Scott and Drew, and it's just been a great, all of our goals align around lifestyle and financial freedom. And it's been a really fun journey, both on the investment side and then helping people really get started and build a portfolio. Part of what I'll mention tonight is don't quit your W-2 job if you have one. It really helps you get financing. One of the biggest issues that I ran into was both my husband and I did that at the same time. So no banks really liked us, which is an important part of being able to grow your rental portfolio. But yeah, what I'll do tonight is kind of do a really broad overview of everything kind of from start to finish buying a property, and not necessarily dig into any specific like types of investing, but as questions come up, feel free to like unmute yourself and ask them, and then or throw them in the chat box and we can kind of dig in anywhere that you guys want more information or more details. So let's get in. So real quick overview, I'll talk about our team, what we do here what we do at Side by Side, why invest in real estate. First and foremost, getting started, loans and financing, finding a property, making an offer, closing, and then if you are inheriting tenants, landlording, which is always the scariest part for people. So this is a little outdated. There's 4 of us, but our team is growing. So here's who we are. Scott and I are on the call, and maybe Garrett's on now. So our mission is really, we believe people can achieve lifestyle and financial freedom through real estate investing. And that can mean a bunch of different things to everybody, whether that's travel or spending more time with your family or quitting your day job or being a real estate investor full time. So we help clients find properties, help them, manage them and sell them when they're ready to move on to the next thing. We do focus on small multifamily, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail on why we like that specific niche, but we can help with any investment type. So if you're looking for single family flips or Airbnb and short-term rentals or commercial, we can do all of that as well. So why invest in real estate? I think the main couple of goals is cash flow. One, I think everybody that comes into it, wants to actually bring in some extra cash per month. And that is an awesome goal. This market is a little bit harder for that to achieve that like right off the bat, but it's something absolutely to consider when you're evaluating a property and kind of know those numbers going into it. But there's other benefits as well. So equity. So whether when you're house hacking, your tenants are paying, part of your mortgage, so you're building equity through that. Appreciation potential. Obviously, Bigger Pockets is going to tell you, and we're going to tell you, never bet on appreciation, but it is an awesome reason to buy real estate because it generally does go up. I think in a time that was, talked about a lot and still talked about a lot is 2008, when properties were as cheap as they may ever have been. Really risky to invest then, but in hindsight, it looks like a genius idea. We don't necessarily foresee the market ever looking like that again to get these like amazing opportunities, but you're still seeing appreciation in this market year over year. I actually saw a stat today that median home price for single family homes went up 8% from 2019 to 2020. So, and there's a few reasons for that larger jump than normal, but I'll talk about the market specifically in a few slides. And then depreciation, I'm not an accountant, but there's some really great tax benefits, and depreciation is one of them. And then leverage, so you're paying for something without coming up with the full cost. So you're able to, buy an asset with a low amount of money down. My computer is okay. So why we like small multifamily? It's approachable. So it's a really affordable price point for a lot of the duplexes and fourplexes in the area, or a single family home. House hacking, the more doors, the more money you can bring in a month. So, if you house hack a fourplex, you may be able to cover your whole mortgage with the rents that are brought in. If you house hack a duplex, and I'll show you in the next slide, you're still saving quite a bit of money. If you rent out bedrooms, you're just trying to bring down your mortgage payment, which will allow you to save more money and ultimately either buy more property or do whatever you want to do. In limited supply, so small multifamilies specifically are very expensive to build new. I think a general median price for a new build triplex is about like $750,000 to like $850,000. So median price for previously built triplexes about $450,000. So expensive to build new. There's appreciation potential due to the limited supply in the Twin Cities market. And then hands-on experience. I think we all would say the best way to learn about property management is to self-manage. And you don't have to do that forever, and you really don't have to love it even when you're doing it, but it will help you screen your property management company when you decide to outsource that and know more about kind of what you're paying for and what you're getting. So some quick math. I like this just as a really quick example of if you bought a single family home in Northeast, maybe the purchase price is $285, down payment's $14, your whole monthly payment $1,875. These don't include utilities. It just makes it a little bit easier. Say you buy a Northeast duplex, we're seeing prices around $350 right now for those. Median down payment's a little higher, monthly payment's a little higher, but you are bringing in rent from that other unit. So your portion of the mortgage goes down. So monthly savings of $1,120, and that could be obviously savings of up to $13,000 a year, depending on what you do with that money. So it's a really great way to save extra cash. If you're open to the idea of house hacking, that is not the only way to get into real estate investing though. It's just a really, really great way. Okay. So I really like this Robert Kiyosaki quote, specifically, real estate investing, even on a very small scale, remains a tried and true means of building an individual's cash flow and wealth. So we try and help our clients, realize those goals, whatever they are, through real estate investing. All right, so that's all great, but I heard it's a seller's market, and it is. So that's okay. So I like people are like, oh, well, it's a seller's market. Why should I buy? Here's some reasons. So 2020 saw a 23% decrease, less properties hitting the market compared to 2019. And that's for small multifamily specifically. But this is true for single family as well. Demand is really high and inventory is limited. COVID really decreased the number of properties that were hitting the market. And because of that, we saw sort of less, I think it was down 60% in the spring. So 60% in the spring. Properties in this spring are usually the most in demand, if you will. And that delayed the spring market. So the summer market turned into the spring market, and the fall market turned into the summer market. And I think October was up 29% year over year as far as sales or closed deals. So limited demand limited supply due to COVID really made demand skyrocket more than previous years. We've seen a general, like a 3 to 5% increase year over year, but this year it's just been a weird year in a lot of ways. But there's still record low interest rates. So it really is a great time to buy. You can buy something for a little bit more money because the interest rates are lower. And if you lock in for 30 years, it can still be a really good time if you find the right property. So some buyers are waiting on the sidelines. Some have left the market completely and kind of just are waiting to see what is going to happen with their jobs or the economy as a whole. But that really hasn't necessarily even neutralized the market due to the low supply. So if it's priced right, most properties are still receiving multiple offers, and waiving an inspection has been one of the ways that offers have been won this year, which scares most people, but we can talk through kind of how we kind of advise on that and how we look at that as well. So Minneapolis, if you're local, people are kind of big, you see it on Bigger Pockets often, what's happening in Minneapolis. There was the riots and, everything that happened this summer has really not scared investors away too much. There are people exiting the market, but there's just as many people looking to get into the Minneapolis market. There has been an increase of vacancy rates in Uptown. And if Garrett wants to jump in at all, or you have any rental questions, Garrett's a good person to ask. So we are seeing some, the higher vacancy rates in Uptown as far as a rental perspective. But Scott and Drew just sold 2 duplexes in Uptown. So that market isn't really like doom and gloom that some out of state or even local investors are thinking it is. And prices continue to rise in small multifamily and single family homes under 400,000. So those numbers continue to go up. And I'll get into that in a little more detail as well. So this is the impact of COVID on real estate showings on the MLS. And it's a really great graph just to kind of see. The yellow line is 2020. So you see this huge drop off in March, but it does start to just trend back upward as we hit later spring, and actually is higher in the fall than it was in 2019. So weird year, but we're still going. I will pause quick. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask right away?
I'll ask one now, I guess, because it kind of pertains to what you're talking about. But as far as looking at, I guess, the markets within the Twin Cities, is there anyone that you would say does better than the other when it comes to house hacking or getting investment properties, specifically comparing either Minneapolis, St. Paul, or the suburbs?
I have a slide on this.
Okay,
75%.
that works too.
75% of the small multifamily sells in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So you'll find most of those properties within those 2 areas.
Okay, gotcha.
It kind of just depends on what, if you want your whole mortgage covered, you might look at, parts of North or
right.
Harrison neighborhood. If you want just a really nice place to live and don't necessarily care, you could look at some of those more expensive areas.
Gotcha.
Northeast, the prices keep going up in Northeast, but there's still opportunity there. There's opportunities in parts of South Minneapolis that, kind of butt up to other neighborhoods. People have gotten a little scared away with Powderhorn, but that's a really good place if you're in the right spot. And then in St. Paul, West 7th, Midway, those kind of areas, even West St. Paul. Garrett, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what you were saying about Uptown, Uptown is a little slow right now, but so is the whole market on rentals. I called some of my fellow rental agents that I used to work with, and because we had a property listed that was taking a little bit of time. It's just everybody staying at home right now. So if they have a property, they're not moving. So it's not just Uptown. We have North properties, it's happening in North, South properties, it's happening in South. So, but the thing is, it's Minneapolis, it's not going anywhere. So, I mean, down the road, it's going to pop back, and you might have to lower your rents right now to get people in, but give it a year and a half, get past the pandemic, get some things happen around the city again, businesses start opening, that people will start moving again, and Uptown will become Uptown again, and whatever. So it is a little slow right now, but not anything crazy. We're not concerned. We just had to lower our price for now and go from there.
Awesome. Good question. All right, so how to get started. And this is always a good reminder of how kind of the process works, even if you've done it before. So I won't spend too much time here for the guys that already have a duplex, but it's a good overview. I always like to be reminded myself. So financing, super important. Really key. No listing agent is going to let you submit an offer without a pre-approval letter. So definitely do that. property search, make an offer, and learning. So financing. Not every lender understands investing, and not every lender has the same loan programs. So definitely shop around. It's a great idea to work with a lender that can help you have a strategy on buying your next deal, or if you want to do, buy 10, you want to house hack 10 times, what's the strategy to get there? And so it's good to know that your lender understands investing, and specifically, small multifamily. And we have some really good recommendations if you need anybody. Types of loans. VA loans, if you qualify for this, you'll know. And then FHA loans, really common with first-time investors, especially if you don't already own a home. Those are where you're going to get your low down payments of 3.5%, and they're probably have some of the best interest rates right now. One downfall to an FHA loan is having to do an FHA appraisal. If the property has some deferred maintenance, older mechanicals, chipping paint, it is going to get flagged. So sellers, if your offer's high enough, they'll look past it, but they don't love FHA, especially when depending on your income, there's some 5% down conventional programs that are just a little bit more of a down payment, but less of kind of they scare sellers less, because sellers hear FHA and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to fix everything. But there is a strategy, if that's the only program you have access to get that offer accepted, that we can help you with. So conventional ranges anywhere from 5% to 25% down. And when you owner occupy, you can put those smaller down payment percentages down. Once you start to buy purely as an investment, you are looking at 20 to 25% down. Construction loans, so if you're funding a rehab or new construction, a good example is the FHA 203K program, which lenders really shied away from this summer, but it's starting to lenders don't like this one anyway. So, but it's a good example of a rehab loan. It's typically, again, a higher down payment percentage, but good to look into if that's kind of your investment strategy. Hard money can't be used for owner occupied properties. High fees and rates, but really flexible with some low money down options. So Pine Financial is a great resource if you're looking at hard money type programs, whether it's bridge loans or rehab loans or anything like that. And then cash, if you have it, use it, and then use it to secure the deal, but I would definitely refinance out of it. It doesn't really make sense to, keep it as cash. Closing costs, as you're kind of planning down payment, think about your closing costs, typically 2 to 3% of the purchase price. And they're made up of out-of-pocket expenses of an inspection and an appraisal, which you're going to prepay. And then at closing, your lending and title fees, your prepaid costs like taxes and insurance, and then any mortgage insurance if you do a lower down payment. So you can negotiate these with the seller, but your offer will be more competitive if you take care of your closing costs. So the seller's closing costs are commissions and a few other items. They're paying those already. The seller will sometimes, and it depends on the deal, pay your closing costs as well. So this additional 2 to 3%. If you need this, just add it to the top of the loan amount. So house is $350. You need your closing cost paid, offer an amount that includes that to be more competitive. If you come in at list and closing costs are kind of reduced the seller's net, probably not a very compelling offer. But again, you just want some things to think about before, and none of them are deal breakers, but you're always trying to make your offer as competitive as possible. Okay, so finding a property. This is actually the hardest part. So choose a realtor that understands your goals, the market, and has experience with investing, and determine your search criteria. If you're looking for your single family, it can, you might be a little bit more specific because so many homes hit the market. With multifamily, you can be more flexible or broader. You can look in, all parts of St. Paul and this area of Minneapolis. Any realtor can set you up with an MLS search. The nice part and why we're all trying to push you to the MLS is because Zillow and Redfin are like 24 to 48 hours behind. So if you text one of us like, hey, I want to go check out this property, it may have already been called in multiple offer situation and it might be like gone. So every realtor you talk to will say, hey, I can set you up on an MLS search, but there is a reason why we do that. And it can be very like specific for the most part. Not everything is included, but it can be more specific than some of the bigger named search engine or like Zillow and Redfin. I'll skip past that. So like I said, we do specialize in small multifamily. So I will kind of go over the numbers, what we're seeing, price points. Median single family home as of November hit 325. So I think this was the year it hit 300 and it just kind of keeps climbing. To understand the market, sellers are getting list plus more. So you can sometimes lowball, but don't go into it thinking that that's going to be the best strategy for every property. And Garrett's really good at talking, in lowballing on the appropriate deals. So just know the market, people are paying the list, they're paying more, they're waiving inspections, it is competitive. So just be aware of that. And things are going really quickly. So if you see something, try and go see it right away. And make an offer pretty quickly because it won't be around generally for very long. Even some of the like overpriced crappy properties still sell in a couple of weeks. And the universe always is working against you when you're the only one that's interested in the crappiest property. Somebody else shows up out of nowhere and puts an offer in right before. So move quickly if you can. So duplex, we're at 327 for the 7-county metro as far as price points. Still really low days on market. And like I said, 75% are going to be within Minneapolis and St. Paul. So suburban multifamily, very popular just due to location and just limited numbers. So, maybe a handful sell in any given suburb. You'll find more of them in kind of the first ring with the side-by-sides, anything built kind of pre-1970, 1980. You stop seeing multifamily as you get into like the Maple Grove. I think one multifamily sold in Maple Grove last year. So closer to the city in inner ring.
Hey, Alyssa, this is David. I've got a quick question for you. Do you know what the median duplex was in like 2018, 2019 before this all kind of skyrocketed?
Yes, I can actually pull it up for you.
Or a rough estimate even?
I actually, I think I added this slide. Hold on. Here you go. So this doesn't seem right. Oh, this is price is actually, you're up here. So you can kind of see the trend line where we're about so all the numbers are slightly different. We are closer to 350 in like Minneapolis and St. Paul, but parts of St. Paul are kind of dragged down pricing. So I can get you if you want specific numbers, but you can kind of see it's increased pretty substantially. So that's why we tell people like don't wait on the sidelines because you would have made money in the last 2 years. So although people have thought it's really expensive, I should wait on the side, I should wait. This shows that you shouldn't have actually waited. But again, you have to make the decision that's right for you. And we all wish.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think it was probably like 300. If you guys, Scott, what do you think, Garrett? If you had to guess on a number specifically.
Back in
that line matches what we're seeing is if you're looking at the Twin Cities across the board, it's 3% every single year. That's not different from multifamily. And sometimes we look at the crystal ball and we think, God damn, I should have bought in 2018. But you're right, Alyssa, not everybody are in the position to pull the trigger. So make the decision when timing's right for you and ride it out.
And I think the other thing, and what Alyssa brought up earlier is important, is back in 2018, the interest rates weren't this low. So yeah, it's a higher price, but your interest rates are low. And if you're a buy, you have to look at it if you're a buy and holder also. I'm a buy and holder. I hold the property. I buy when it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think rents have gone up a little bit. It hasn't been as high of a curve from the rental perspective. So numbers are going up, but Garrett made a good point. Interest rates help people spend more. So triplex prices about $350. You may ask, well, why don't I just buy a triplex then? But 43 have sold this year. So I think we're at 992 multifamily that have sold. 43 of those are triplexes. So great when you find them. Obviously, you see far less triplexes, and fourplexes were at 452. And that will range from 300 to 800 and plus. But median price is kind of hovering around that 450 to 550, I would say. Like those are the nicer ones that you would actually want to live in. And 86 of those have sold. So awesome to house hack a fourplex if you can, but duplexes are great, and you'll see more of those hit the market. So you can kind of see the trend line heading up. We were actually at like 800 about a month ago. So we've made up some pretty, the fall has been very busy comparatively to other years. So we've made up some numbers, but we were like 400 listings behind up until this month. All right, making an offer. Like I said, don't wait. Properties do go really fast. Inspection is going to cost you between honestly, it's probably 400 to 800 if you say single family to fourplex. The more doors, the more expensive. Worth the peace of mind a lot of times, unless it's a really perfectly Wes making an appearance. I love it. Unless it's a great property, an inspection is good to have. Earnest money, usually 1%, but if you want your offer to be a little more competitive, you can raise that. And must be deposited within 48 hours. Your earnest money will ultimately come out of your closing costs. So that reduces the amount you have to bring to closing. Pick a good title company. They'll help you through some of the hurdles of closings at times. And then our other recommendations, honestly, always do a mainline sewer scope. We have had so many problems with these. They are all super old in the Twin Cities, and can be super expensive to fix, and it adds zero value to your house. So you want a seller to take care of it before it becomes your problem.
On that note, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have the mainline sewer cleaned on a regular basis, or do you just do it when you first buy the property to inspect it?
It's a good idea to have it cleaned. I've been putting it off because I'm worried what I'll find at my place, but yeah, it's good to get the roots out of it, keep it clean. It helps maintain the line. So it's fairly inexpensive if you did it every couple of years. It's a good idea.
I had a quick question too on that. So I'm assuming then sewer line inspections are typically separate from a normal inspection?
Yeah, some of the inspectors that we use, you can just add it on, so it's an additional.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. If they don't do it, you can easily get somebody out there pretty quickly. There's a shocking number of sewer line companies in the Twin Cities, and we know all of them.
And when you get that sewer line inspection, he will usually have a suggestion on how often to get it cleaned. So If it's a new PVC pipe, he'll be like, you don't need this clean forever. But if it's a South Minneapolis drain or, pipe, it's gonna have to get cleaned probably once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they're all old, unfortunately. And it's your responsibility to the street or to the main line in the street, the city line. So they can be really long and they're always a pain. So yeah, fun sewer line talk. But yeah, so it's really competitive right now. So either act fast or think creatively. So can you add a bedroom? What are some things you can do to bring in more rent? And thinking about how to make your offer more competitive. So come up with a plan that makes sense for you and your risk level, or your risk tolerance. Like, are you okay waiving an inspection? If you're not, that's okay. Maybe you can make that up in price or earnest money or quicker close. And chat with your lender about the quick close. Don't assume that they can do that as quickly as you would hope that they can, and they'll usually give you some insight into how quickly they are able to get everything done. And then a question I get, should I just wait? Interest rates are awesome, like amazing. If you can find the right deal, it can be a really, really great time to buy. So the closing process, so inspection, this is a little ahead of the closing, but inspection period, if you don't waive it, try and make it as short as possible if you can. Weekends still count. So if you get your offer accepted on a Friday, consider that. But people used to do 10 days, and please don't do that. That is like nobody wants, no seller or listing agent is going to be like, yeah, 10 days is totally enough time. You can get somebody in there pretty quickly. So if you're going to do an inspection, try and be as quick as possible about it. You'll have to prepay closing costs for the appraisal. And again, usually you don't see any issues unless there was multiple offers and the price got driven pretty high. Then that you may run into an issue that it doesn't appraise, but usually the benefit is on the buyer there because that's what the property is worth. You do a final walkthrough and you get to closing. It's so easy. It's just this easy every time. So some inspection rules, inspectors are going to find something, that's their job. And typically the older the house, the longer the report is going to be. And it's really just reviewing the big ticket items. What are going to be some expenses that are going to come up that I want to be aware of? Doesn't make it a deal breaker, but if you have to spend $7,500 on a furnace in the first year, maybe you didn't plan for that. So just trying to figure out, windows, super expensive. Furnace, boiler, mainline sewer, the age of the roof. Sellers, I feel like, never know the actual age, so it's always good to get an inspector out there, just take a look at it. It's usually pretty obvious if it needs to be replaced. Take a look at your foundation and the electric. You can negotiate on inspection items, but the seller doesn't really need to do anything. So come up with a plan on what's a deal breaker for you. And a realtor can help you with that. You can always walk away. You're just out your inspection money, which is a bummer, but you'd rather be out $500 than buy a bad property and have headaches for years. I know nothing about that. We had a bat in our front porch today and a mouse, I think, that somehow crawled in somewhere as well. But yeah, so once the inspection period is done, and you've accepted the terms, whatever those are, your lender and your title company will take over from there. All right, so now you own a property. What do you do? Now what? If you're inheriting existing tenants, send them a welcome letter, introduce yourself, tell them where to pay rent. You must honor current leases and terms. So you can't inherit a property and kick everybody out. And actually right now, typically the requirement by law is 1 month plus a day to give notice if they don't have a lease. But under the current eviction moratorium, you cannot non-renew a lease right now. So even if somebody's lease is ending, unless they just changed it, so unless you're moving in, and I have that on the next slide, you can't non-renew. We assume the eviction moratorium will be extended through winter. They've been extending it 30 days at a time since March. And there was, like I said, a small change in non-renewals for if an owner or your family is moving in. So if you're going to owner occupy a property, the seller can, or you can give notice. But if you're inheriting a tenant and you just don't like them, they go to month until the eviction moratorium comes up. And that's also federally true right now. The Minnesota moratorium is more strict than the federal one, but both are in place. So no real evictions right now unless your tenants are endangering other people. So if you run into an issue with non-payment, you can't evict. And then no non-renewals, and again, unless it's the case of family or yourself moving in, and rent is still due for those tenants though. So we haven't seen a huge drop in people not being able to pay or not paying. There's been some specific, a few people have had some issues, but most people, there's a lot of programs right now to help tenants afford rent through the pandemic. So it's something to know about, but not necessarily be like super afraid about, because there's lots of options for people. Rental management tools, I use Cozy, Zenlord Pros Local, Zebo, there's a bunch of them. You shouldn't pay a ton of money for them because most of them are free. So if you found a service and you have to pay them, keep shopping around. Super easy to screen tenants and collect rent. Rental licensing specific to cities, but a good realtor can help you with that. Utilities, switch them all into your name, the ones that the landlord's paying or the owner's paying. Typically water, sewer, and trash are kind of the main ones, but you might have house electric and you might be paying gas. So always know that ahead of time, like what are you responsible for? And as you're running your numbers, these are good things to know. And then the state of Minnesota has a lease you can use. The Multifamily Housing Association has some really affordable, like $2 templates. And if you want to make any modifications, definitely talk to an attorney. So if you have tenants, build a relationship with them. I think that's going to be the best thing that you can do if you're managing rental properties. Be honest, be upfront, and be a good communicator, and you'll, 99% of the problems that you would encounter, you won't, because you're just in communication, you understand what's going on. Some really good resources, obviously Bigger Pockets. I go on there all the time and look stuff up. Meetups when they were happening in person are really great. And then we run a Millennial Investors group on Facebook. That's been really great for resources and referrals. But just getting to know other landlords and people to help you through it. The biggest thing is kind of finding people that A, understand what you're going through, but B, can help you with a tile guy or a HVAC guy. Like having those resources makes property management a breeze, honestly. Once you have all the resources that you need to make sure that if something comes up, if the quote unquote your toilet overflows in the middle of the night, which sometimes it could, but it rarely does, you know who you can call. So get your financing in order, pick a good realtor. We know there's 3 on the call, and then start your search, but be patient. Know that the market is very competitive, and maybe the first property you see you offer on, but maybe it's the 50th. So we hope it's not the 50th, but if it is, like, you'd rather buy the right deal than jump into one just to get something. So don't wait forever, but be smart. And this is where you can find us. Our website, we're on Facebook, and our intern runs our Instagram. Any questions or thoughts or things you were hoping to get answered but didn't? Feel free to unmute yourself and.
Alyssa, this is David again. Quick question for you. On going from your first property to your second property, trying to do, the 1 year owner occupy and then turn around and save for a down payment in time do a second one. I'm just wondering, the different ways to finance it. It's to come up with another 5%, or if you go FHA or creative financing or whatever. I'm just looking for, I don't know if there's suggestions that you have, or ways that you may have done it, or.
Yeah. What would you use the first time?
I did a 5% conventional.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
which was great, but it's a lot of
yeah.
money, to save in 12 months.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, FHA is a great program if you're going to owner occupy. I mean, there is some conventional like 3% down programs around as well, conventional, but I mean, still mortgage insurance. So if you're looking for kind of the low down payment options, you can definitely look at FHA, look for the banks that have the 3%. I don't know the other, requirements on that, or if, maybe mortgage insurance makes it so expensive that no deals work. But if you plan to owner occupy, just kind of explore the different options that make sense given like where you're at. It's hard to always give people advice not knowing their personal financial situation, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like using an FHA loan is not going to get you a deal. You just want to make sure that you're aware that, a property with deferred maintenance might not qualify. And on all the MLS listings, like most listing agents will say like, this isn't going to go FHA. But Drew just ran into an issue where it got switched halfway through the deal, from 5% to FHA. Listing agent said no FHA, but they made it work. He had to do quite a bit of work to it to get it to get through the FHA appraisal process, but it worked out. So Garrett, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's also one thing our team talked about the other week was you'll want to call around. There's some, like, I think it's Citizens Bank and a couple other those that we had conversations about, that you're gonna have to wait for the right deal, but you can do a construction loan that if the ARV is high enough, basically you can get into it without any money out of pocket. And you can do that as a owner. I think you can do that one as a non-owner occupant. And then there's other ones where you can do a construction loan where it is owner occupant. And then they give you the money. So basically what they do is they put you on the 30-year note, and then your ARV, if it's higher than 20%, I believe that you can get the full loan and everything without putting any money down. But check around with your banks. I think what the one we were talking about, Alyssa, is Citizens. I want to say is the one that I just currently worked with.
Yeah.
And then Kim Burke had one for one of Drew's clients that is doing an owner occupant construction loan where he's changing it from a single family or into a triplex, and getting the full loan through that way too.
Yeah. I'm actually talking to Kim on Thursday, or I have to make an appointment. But about that construction loan, like 10% down for a single family, like fix and flip, if you will. So yeah, it is good to know there's a surprising number of programs out there in different lender requirements. So like I said, we can definitely send you in the right direction, but it never hurts to shop around, and people have, all sorts of things sometimes that nobody knows about. On
those ones, you do have to be patient though. They're not like, hey, it's going to just pop up tomorrow. It's the one we did, we waited, my client did, we waited 3 or 4 months before one hit the market, and we jumped on it the first day.
Yeah.
Hey team, Sarah's taking care of a baby, but next webinar.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'll be doing creative financing and financing in general and how to grow your portfolio. So the question from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 10 to 15, I'll be covering all of those things. So there's a lot of good financing options out there. And I was a mortgage lender for a couple of years under Kim Burke. So yeah, it's leveraging your financial strategy is your best way to grow your portfolio.
I
Perfect,
forgot.
thank you.
Scott, that's next Tuesday. I'm sorry,
Tuesday, 5:30.
That's what babies do.
Distract.
So I had another question for you guys. Wanted to ask, how common is it to either break even or cash flow when, I guess for me, buying my first investment property? Should I be expecting to just be reducing my living expenses, or do you think if I, wait for the right property, it's going to be possible to cash flow or break even while I'm occupying it?
It's a great question. It'll be harder now with the prices where they're at to
Sure.
owner occupy and like pay nothing. But I always say, like, if half your rent's covered, that's like a good goal to shoot for, and anything better than that is awesome. The more doors, the better. A roommate helps, right? So if you want to get creative, but if you see a place you love and you're like, oh man, I have to pay $500 to live here, you're like, okay, what would I pay to live in this neighborhood for this property? So it really, the locations vary.
Sure.
Will play into that significantly.
Yeah.
You'd be able to find something still in the Twin Cities where you could live for free, but.
Gotcha. And then I guess kind of a spin-off question to that is, as far as like just kind of like running numbers and stuff, after I would move out of the property, is the new tenant that I get, does that rent just like all go to the bottom line, or does any of that get eaten up by, I guess, having to factor in that new tenant?
No, generally, like, you'll know pretty quickly what your expenses are. So as you're living there, you'll get the water bill. So those won't change too much if you replace yourself with a tenant.
Oh, true. That makes sense. Yeah.
I would say the only thing to think of is like the age of mechanicals, right? So if you need a new furnace or like a new water heater, to plan for that, right? Plan those dollars out. But yeah, once somebody else moves in, it's generally about the same. I'm trying to think.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think what Alyssa said earlier is big. Look, if you find properties that are add value with like, hey, I can add another bedroom while you're living in it. So if you're a single dude, or if you're, in a relationship, if you have a 3-bedroom on one side and a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom on the other side, but you can add a bedroom or two on the 1-bedroom side, live in that one, rent out the 3-bedroom, create that one into the 2 or 3-bedroom. And then now you've added value by like $800 if you add 2 more bedrooms.
Sure.
So that's how you have to get creative now, because like she said, you're not going to be able to get back in the day, you could buy a duplex for $200,000, rent it out for $1,500 and have your whole mortgage covered. Now it's $350,000 and you have $500 left. So when you're living in it, I always say pick the worst side, live in that one, or the one with the least amount of add, or the one with the most add value, live in that one, because you have to be in there for a year. So you can do that work over a year.
Sure. Yeah, I guess kind of a spin-off question to that then is, do you guys typically recommend buying turnkey, or maybe looking for something a little distressed, or what are you guys typically doing? Doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, I mean, add value is awesome. I mean, it's going to give you an opportunity for, appreciation and increasing rents.
Right.
A lot of people are thinking along the same lines, but if you see a you could buy sometimes you just see a turnkey property, like, this is nice, like the numbers work, like it, like I don't have to think about it. But yeah, I mean, most people are looking for a little bit of value add, not super distressed, but enough.
Right.
I could do $5,000 of work and increase rents.
Okay, I guess my question then is, like, do you guys see that as being a big risk, or do you think usually if it's like $5,000 or less, it's something you're not really going to have to worry about something going wrong, as long as you know you can fund it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot in Minneapolis and St. Paul's old, so you always have some, like, even in, so where duplexes are like sometimes like put like lipstick on a pig. It's like, oh, we put some LVP in and we painted everything white and gray and it's so nice now. And the furnace is ancient and you know, the electric's old, but like, you're kind of evaluating everything from that lens of like, oh, I can add a bedroom and redo the kitchen, and that's going to be X number of dollars. That will get me this much in rent. Mechanicals are great, right? So if you start like, I always talk about this property. There was a fourplex in like 39th and Bloomington. Like the guy had done, the units themselves were kind of run down, but the guy had done everything: water heaters, furnace, exterior roof, like everything was super new. It's like, well, that's an awesome property. You don't see those
Right.
often. So you're just kind of saying like, okay, I've got the roof and I've got this, and those are the expenses I'm willing to take on if something goes wrong to fix them. So, and you're adding value too, right? So you can write it off.
Right.
Also just improve your property, which improves your bottom line.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys.
I think if you don't care if I add something, Alyssa, on that. I think one thing is that I look at when I'm buying. A time when you can get a good deal is if look at the rents. If the current landlord just never raised the rents, and let's say it's a duplex, and you know the area brings $1,100, but he's renting them for $750. Well, a lot of people are scared of that because the numbers don't work. Well, if the lease is only another 6 months, eat it for 6 months, break even, and then go and raise the rents when it's time. I did that on a duplex in Northeast, got it last year for a smoking deal. Rents were $650 and $700, and after 1 year, I'm at $1,100 on each one. So, I mean, right there, that was my ad value. I haven't done anything to it. My ad value was the rents were wrong.
And you said,
they had 6 months left on the lease. One moved out, one stayed, and was like, yeah, that makes sense. So look at that too. That's a good way to add value, is just seeing low rents.
Yeah, there's a lot of good strategies like that. And, you know, just like you said, thinking creatively about how this can work. So. Any other questions?
I have a small question, not the big picture of buying a house, but buying a washer. What would you buy, used or new, and where would you go? Washing machine for clothes.
I just bought some stuff, like a stove at Warner Stallion's outlet on Nicollet. I think it's over there. I also go to A1 or A+, like the refurb place a lot, and get stuff. I've heard certain appliances hard to find right now.
Okay, I was looking at the A1 or A+, and I didn't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea.
I've never had any issue, but I did recommend it to a client once, and her dryer started on fire because they banged it up like as they were putting it in installing it. So it wasn't A1, it was the installers, but I've had good luck there. And you can shop around and they'll tell you. The one over on the east side has a really funny lady that works at it. But
if you can afford it, buy new. Don't buy used.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's actually cheaper to buy new. Like we went and looked for like a stove, and it was like $100 more to buy it new from Warner Stallion.
That means less maintenance for you down the road if it's used. It's kind of, yeah. So we started off, when we started off our journey of investing, we were buying the used stuff, or like, hey, I found this on Facebook for $300, this fridge. Let's just bring that in. Basically, we were changing that fridge out another year later. And the other ones that we put all new, we haven't touched them for 3-4 years now.
Perfect. Makes sense. That's what I was looking for.
I will swear by A1, but we don't buy, like, they sometimes have new stuff there, so it's always worth it to just check it out. But I know in the last like 6 months, they haven't had as good of an inventory. So Good question.
I've got a question. I don't know if this may be better to ask a lender, but if you guys have seen anything. So my plan is definitely going to be to put probably 5% down. That's what I'm thinking, maybe a 3.5 FHA, but that's obviously going to come with PMI. Is there like a typical percentage that PMI is, or does it completely depend on like the loan program? Or I understand if this is like totally not the right question to ask you guys, but any like typical amount, like between a certain amount per month that you guys see, or?
I've heard like a 0.5% of the purchase price.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
But Scott would know more specifically. Yeah, so the 5% down program, like for the state, has it's a higher interest rate but lower PMI. So I had a
Okay. I
client
think that's
that
what I heard.
used that, and although the interest rate was higher, the savings on the PMI made the monthly payment lower, and then he got
Gotcha.
refi. So
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, if we paid like $250 for a couple of years in PMI.
Okay.
It can be,
Gotcha.
it can eat a big chunk of your
Yeah.
cash flow.
That's another add value thing. If you add 2 bedrooms, you could do a refi on it and potentially get rid of that PMI. If
Yeah.
if the ARV is high enough, because you're going
Gotcha.
from one, if you go 1 to 3, now you've added 2 bedrooms, which, you know, typically a bedroom's between 7 to 10,000 of add value.
Gotcha. Last question I have for you guys, as far as it goes for like running the numbers on, you know, if I'm looking at a property and trying to figure out, you know, what all the numbers are going to look like, are there any, I guess, any categories that you guys are always putting a certain percentage on? For example, like expenses or utilities, like, I know you guys have way more data than I do, but like, are you guys always looking at on a per property basis, or you're always saying like 6% of or I don't know, 10% of the purchase price I'm going to put towards utilities each year, or towards just expenses in general to have that as safety money? Like, are there any categories you guys are always using the same percent, or is it a per property basis?
That's a great question. If the listing agent's good, they'll have the utility info
Okay.
for you, not always. And just which will give you better numbers. If it's the properties in Minneapolis, you can look up the water amount. But yeah, it kind of depends on the property as far as like maintenance and repair and like a CapEx budget. If I use a bigger pockets calculator, I'm really lazy. So if I just want to quickly be like, okay, what does this actually look like? I think it's a good deal, but I want to run it. I'll just sometimes do like 2 or 3% for both of those without knowing, you know, having been in it and seen like, oh shoot, like I lied, all the mechanicals are, 100 years old. So,
Sure.
But yeah, usually I actually ask a lot. I have a few clients that are very specific about like numbers. And so she's always like has a list of like, who takes care of snow and lawn care, and every deal she analyzes, she wants to know the specifics. So I'll ask a lot of the listing agent if they have a rent roll and, expenses.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
But Garrett, do you have a number that you use, or do you just know?
I don't have a number. So what we go off of is we live our everyday lives and we all have jobs. So all of our money goes back into a pot. Everything we get from rentals goes back into that pool. And if there's something that comes up, we take care of it. Again, I think the big thing is at the beginning of the day, when you walk through a property, look at the big ticket items, the gas, the electric, or the boilers or furnace, the water heater, the roof, the furnace, I already said that, but if there's a boiler, AC unit, if you see that the boiler or the AC unit's 20 years old, that's probably something you'll want to account for. But if it's not something you use in your everyday, if you don't need that money on everyday life, because then we don't touch it. It either goes towards our next purchase or it's there for an emergency of maintenance. So we're a little fortunate that way. So if you don't need, I always say if you don't need to touch it, let it grow a pool, that pool on the side towards your next purchase or towards maintenance or emergency maintenance.
Yeah, sometimes like on bigger pockets, they'll say, oh yeah, allocate this much, but it can kill deals here locally because numbers are a little higher and rents are, are high, but they're not like California high. So, if you put in 5%, a deal may never work out. So it's good to maybe if it sort of, you run it, you're like, I kind of like it. I think this could be a good opportunity. Go check it out. And then you'll have a better idea of like, okay, I'm way off on CapEx. But initially, I think sometimes if you run it too conservatively, literally nothing will work in the metro area, possibly ever again. So good to always account for expenses, but not overdo it.
Agreed on that.
Awesome. Well, if nobody has any other questions, feel free, if things come up, feel free to reach out to us and ask. We're all, for the most part, open books. I always say that, other investors say this, so I've just stolen this, but you share everything but like how to find a deal, right? Like we will help you do everything that we can to get a deal, except kind of how we find them. But a lot of the deals we find go to our clients. So it's a win-win, I think.
Thank you, Alyssa. Great job.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night. And reach out with any questions.
Thank you, guys.
Nice to meet y'all.
Yep, you too.
There you are. There you are.